exactly what happened to Carmelo Anthony, the young brother out there in Texas. See, this is why you got to know your history. Stay tuned. I'm going to tell you within 3 minutes why this happened, what really happened. Okay, when you know your history, you know that during the civil rights movement, during the 60s movement, the issue was where a black person could sit at. This is why you have what you call sit-ins, Rosa Parks, Freedom Riders, all of that was going on. But in the backdrop of that were two main power pieces, which was the Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation. The Nation of Islam was already doing what they were doing, but it was when the 5% Nation came with a law coming to the young people in the streets, the ones who were in what is typically called low moderate income communities, which at this time the CRA didn't exist. So let me bring some of this down in the language, keep it real simple and plain. So history repeats itself, but you don't have to repeat the history. So what happened to Carmelo Anthony was what was happening to us in the 60s, to a lot of people that were standing up for what they seen clearly as being a right to stand on what I stand on, to defend myself and to coexist in the land with you, meaning that we had to coexist with white people in a situation where the white people didn't want us around unless we were the labor force. So the labor force has always been something where, the structured way of this system was set up for us to occupy. It was set up for us to occupy the labor force. And it's nothing wrong with traveling through the labor force, but don't go through the labor force to seek to retire in the labor force if you an original man. Now, if you're a white person, then that's for you. You might say, well, that was never meant for me. Well, this is the thing. We have the knowledge of ourselves, which produces financial intelligence. Genuine knowledge of yourself produces financial intelligence. Some people are advocating financial literacy. Wizetics, we advocate financial intelligence. FI, dealing with intelligence. And the reason why is that just being literate is not good enough. Just having intellectual, you know, academics is not good enough. You have to actually have the genuine intelligence, the original intelligence, the knowledge of your what self, what allows you to think mathematically. And you really rise above just regular thinking. And now what I'm saying is what happened to Carmelo was he was being targeted by individuals who come in with a white supremacist mentality and through their actions. And he stood his ground, which he can righteously do. So now, when that took place, it produced a certain effect of how the system was set up. Because at one point in time, if you could just ask Dred Scott, that a black person in America could not accuse a white person of anything or hold them accountable for anything, even if it was a transgression amongst their own physical being. That a black person could not address this in the court of law, right? So these things were not just produced by those who are just like, or I say, hick town, slow, or just redneck. No, these things were put together by very sophisticated individuals who express themselves to be gentlemen. And these individuals are funded in the whole thing with people like Rockefeller, the Vanderbilt, Astor, DuPont, Ford. These people are the real movers of things. Now, some people say, well, why is, yeah, everybody know that today. There's so many books about this stuff. There's so much information on this social media about this stuff. So what I'm telling you is nothing new. What's the difference about what I'm telling you? The difference about what I'm telling you is this. Carmelo Anthony will be out in no limited time. This is something that had to take place because some of you need to see what's really what. And sometimes, a lot of times, you can only get waking up through a form of pain, something that you repel against because you don't like the way it feels. That usually is how people who are not fully developed mentally learn. But, you know, of course, as a child, you go through your growth and development stages, but you're supposed to grow out of that. So when you don't grow out of those stages of what we call in puberty in your adolescent, if you keep that way of thinking growing into your adulthood, you will be making decisions that disrupt entire communities and generations. That's how serious it is. And so we address these things from a solution standpoint, not just to examine what the problem is. We've been examining this for many years. This is why we say from the front lines to ownership, a 25-year story of life, business, and brotherhood. This is a real experience, not something that's a made up script to describe or have a moral to it to represent something. No, this is the real thing. 25 years of a journey that has transcended that amount of time through life, business, and brotherhood. What does that mean? That's the Wizetics way. So when we come with the Wizetics way, it's not something that we just came up with. It's not something that just became a tool to use. No, it has been used for a very long time. It has produced generation to another generation of wealth building. And the only thing is, we don't pursue riches as the way that certain people pursue riches from a Eurocentric standpoint. We have our own culture. Our culture is not rooted in trying to be rich. Now, getting to the riches is just a tool. It's a tool that you use to build with and build through. You enter the system but remain the same. Most people can't enter into the world of capitalism, into the world of pursuing, monetary riches. They don't really know how to handle the gravitational pull of that world. And that world could cause you to go down dark places of savagery. This is why you have what could go on with Diddy and all the other Epstein and all these other individuals. This is why these things can happen, because this is a part of their social equality. Their social equality is in such a way that they've been keeping us out of, because they knew at a certain point that we would run them from amongst us once we could see, like, oh, this is what you're really into. Yo, we're not into that. I have a certain integrity about myself. I have certain morals. I have certain values. Yes, we go through our trials and tribulations. We go through love, go through hell, and come out right and exact. We go through hell and leave it, not remain in it. So we're not in the aspect of saying holy. We the righteous ones. That's our role within the planet, within the universe. Everybody have a role, just like you got firefighters, you got police officers, you got military soldiers. They all have different roles, but their goal is the same, is to serve. All of them are servants, public servants or private servants. They mostly be successful when they're serving a cause that's bigger than the individual. So this is the Wizetics way, because one of us equals many of us. That's how we deal with our mathematical structuring. Some people might not agree. That's okay. But for those of us who do, this is how we understand why that happened to Carmelo Anthony. And not only do we understand why that happened to Carmelo Anthony, we also understand what is the thing that you need to see right now. Not telling you what to do. This is what you need to see. You need to see a certain way. You need to look at this a certain way. And once you look at this a certain way, once you see this situation a certain way, you're going to make the mathematical decision that is right and exact. It's not going to be based on what you feel. It's not going to be based off the passion or the anger. You're mad at what happened or you're vengeful. That's not the proper way to make a decision, especially a life consequence decision. So what we do at what we are doing at the Wizetics way, we are making sure that you can see the evidence of this. This is what the front lines to ownership is about. A 25-year story of life, business, and brotherhood, not something that's a made up script. When you look at a lot of things that you see from Hollywood, the movies or certain things like that, they come in with a lot of synthetic, artificial intelligence. It's artificial scripts, and they trying to depict reality, but they doing a lot of exaggerating. And so this exaggerations put you in a state of being delusional of what reality really is. So you think if these things can happen this way and these things can happen that way. No, those things don't happen that way. That's a mystery way of looking at life. Everything is real. Everything that has an effect has a cause. So it's cause and effect. It's mathematically expressed. It's predictive. It's predictable. You can predict it. It's a pattern. It's a cycle. The only way something could change is if something changes. And even when you express that way, it's hard for certain people to grasp it when they think in a certain way. When you're thinking in a way that keeps you subservient, when you think in a way that you only believe who you are, you only believe that this is what you think something is, you still a degree up under the one who structured the premise for you. Meaning that if you only looking at the Bible or the Quran, or if you're only looking at ancient Kemet, or if you're only looking at anything that's isolated, if you just local in your thinking process, then you're gonna miss a valuable piece because you have to see the 360-degree view. You have to see a 360-degree view because it's something on the other side that you can't see from this side if something is blocking your view. So therefore, you have to go around, or now people say, can you see through it? I get an X-ray. But what I'm saying is a 360-degree view, meaning you see in all sides of a situation before you make a decision. You're able to evaluate everything in a way that doesn't take a whole lot of time up because we don't lose time. So what happened to Carmelo was a sign for you to do what you're supposed to have been doing, and that is do for yourself, build the nation, get education, build the nation, build your community. And what happens is this makes America great, greater than it ever was, because this is what Black freedom really means. In order to make America great, the only way it could really be great is when Black people truly experience freedom in a way that is self-defined, that nobody else has defined it to us, but we defined it for ourselves. We have agreed collectively amongst ourselves, amongst our social equality, whether we come as 5%ers, whether we come as Moors, NOI, Hebrew, whatever that you come as, you have to always understand that we are the 5% when we talking from that cultural standpoint. And when we talk from that cultural standpoint, that standpoint is not religious. That standpoint is just this is our way of life. It's a way that we have defined for ourselves because who we were in an aspect of our like nationality, our identities, it was stripped away. These things were stripped away from us. So we had to produce our own selves from amongst our own selves as it was in the beginning. Meaning that in any founding of a nation, of a people, they themselves structured it according to themselves of how they saw it, not somebody else that came in and dictated to them of how they should be, because this is what they saying they want it to be for you. Meaning that you making up a law, you making up a rule, and you saying that this is what I gotta go by because that's what you came up with. For me, I had no say so. I had no way of weighing in on it. So therefore, it became a dictatorship in what was called slavery. That was the term that was used. That's why in the 13th Amendment you see the word slavery or involuntary servitude, meaning that this is against my own will. That's what involuntary servitude means, meaning that I don't freely choose to be in this condition, meaning I don't want to be your property. I don't choose to work here for you and have you treat me and do the things you do to me, beat me with a whip, have sex with my wife, and not what I want to do. So they had to bring about the 13th Amendment, which expressed the guidelines of how things will be going on from then on. Meaning that the chattel form of slavery, this system is no longer here unless you've been convicted of a crime. So now what is a crime? You have to go into defining that. What is a crime? Because you use the word someone who's been duly convicted of a crime. So what is a crime? The crime is whatever you say it is. Because this is how the democratic system works is through the legislative process. The legislative process is you go through the bill, you go through the vote, and you go through who majority come with, and then it becomes a law based off of the social equality, meaning that the people that were there representing the interests of their constituents, which were what? White people. So if it's all white people here at the founding of the country and they putting together laws and they structuring things for their own best interest and self-interest, they excluded us in that process. So therefore, it's baked into the system from the very beginning. So the system is functioning how it was structured to function from the very beginning. You can't blame the traffic for the direction that it's traveling in. It can only travel in the direction that the road takes it. So if the system is structured in this way, and this is the system, then the people who participate in the system can only go this way in this system. There is no other direction for you to go in because the road is carved out this way. There's modifications on the road, there are exits on the road, which could take you in a different direction. But you still have to know the whole landscape to know where are you striving to go. Now is how do you get there? And this is the where the Wizetics way come in. We show you how to get there. We're showing you how to get from this point of where you are to this point of where you want to go. And because of that, you got to think about how the algorithm systems work now. It's tracing a pattern, but it's picking up on who is paying attention, but it's only going to be allowed for certain people to have exposure to pay attention because of the it's caps there, it's structured there. So this is why we network how we always network, word of mouth, on the ground, in person, and then we also navigate through these systems as well, but become more proprietary in your own system. Because now when you're building your own systems, it allows you to structure the way things operate according to how you and your team agree, you and your family agree. We agree that this is how we should conduct ourselves, and we shall be regulated in this shape and form of fashion in our business engagements and in all our life engagements. This is a culture now that we are talking about, and this is what we are dealing with. So we look at the black business economy throughout different areas across the globe. Of course, where we exist at in what we call C Mecca, that's Charlotte, it was a beautiful Juneteenth experience based off the black businesses that I seen come together and individuals patronizing with these businesses. It was a beautiful thing, for the past June 19th. So June 19th, 2026, here in C Mecca in Charlotte was a great look. It was a great experience because that was the black dollar circulating amongst the black economy, amongst black people, amongst black households. So this is how we community develop. This is how we build community because now we are transferring each other's energy in a way that's healthy and productive with our best interests in the forefront. And so that's constant elevation, constantly growing. So I told you I was going to explain to you what happened to Carmelo. To sum it all up, what happened to Carmelo Anthony, the young brother out there in Texas, with him getting 35 years and being convicted of murder of the white boy. The thing about that is that um it's the return of the same repeated history of what came about for Rosa Parks, what came about for Martin Luther King, what produced a Malcolm X, what produced a Huey P. Newton, what produced a Bobby Seale, what produced a Medgar Evers, what produced a Harriet Tubman, what produced a Frederick Douglass, what produced Master Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad, and Allah himself, who we, look at as the father who came and do what he did with the children to bring the 5%. That's the Wizetics way. So the conditions themselves dictated the time, and the time dictated the agenda. So these things are what is taking place. It's showing you what time it is. It's showing you what you need to do for your who self, and how should you do for yourself, just like anybody else does for themselves. It's really not no real big deal for real. It's like nothing. Yo, do for yourself, make your own products, have your own services, you know, partnership with your own people. And you still can do business with others though, because I'm not pro-black nor am I anti-white. That's not how we come. And you can accept it or reject it. This is This is the Wizetics way, which is, rooted in the 5% way. I'm just bringing it to you in my name, where I come as a representation of that. Just no different than when you see, and definitely a little bit or more supreme, than you look at a Jew who has a business that's in representation of his Jewish nation. You have an Italian that has a business in representation to his Italian or, Sicilian, whatever nation of people. So we are doing the same exact thing. So we no longer seek to be anybody else. We just being ourselves. We the gods. So, and we the Allahs. And so when we come this way and you say, well, Wise, how are you able to do a business relationship with someone that's not a 5%er, or even with a 5%er? Because you got a product, you got services, you got these things, you got books, you got merch, you do speaking engagements, you do these things, you do a private advisory. Yeah, I do all those things. And what that means is fair exchange is never a robbery. So we dealing with exchanging of time, money, energy. You know what I'm saying? Time, energy, money. That's what I call TEM. Your time, your energy, and money. So it's the proper management of your time, your energy, and money. Proper usage of your time, energy, and your money. That's where the real wealth comes from. This is how you achieve riches, which is the ability to have, you know, cash on hand or liquid on hand to just do things that you need to do as you move throughout your life on a certain level. You know, the freedom to choose, but certain righteousness have to be there first to get access to that type of real abundance. It's how I come with it. So when you look at Steve Jobs, when you look at Mark Zuckerberg, you got to also think about what happened to famous Amos, somebody like that. You got to go back further in certain things. You can see where we have to deal with financial intelligence. We have to go back to Zanzibar days, Arabia and Mecca, going back to Fez, going back to Timbuktu, going back to, you know, this whole thing of the trade routes. And we here in this day and time, they still study that history within their certain schools that they have, you know, certain fraternities and they be involved in. They study in certain aspects of history. So we have the Asiatic history, and we also have Allah's world manifest history. And I'm giving it to you. This is like the first time you really got this all the way raw this way on Wizetics Mental Wealth. But we want to make it clear with the different branding, because sometimes these brands, they don't be understood of what it is. So some people say, well, I didn't know that you had that brand. I didn't know you had that brand. So when we came with what we came with in our days of building our first and second companies, what we did was we made sure money was not the motive. We made sure money was not the goal. Money was just a means that brought about what would be utilized to build in education, institutions of education. And these institutions of education starts in the street and it goes inside into the prison houses and it comes back out. And this is the process of what they call reentry. And then we talk about prevention and intervention. We're talking about saving our children, the lives of our children. So we don't have to be apologetic about that. We don't have to come in a way where we happen to be like politically correct. What we're doing is taking a firm stance in our home, in our household, in our communities to make it a safe place to live. And in making it a safe place to live, it has to be livable. And in order for it to be livable, we have to be in proper management of the resources that are already there. It's resources that's already there in all of our communities. And the best resource you have is the human mind resource going into the divine level, which is going through the Wizetics way. Because just the intellect is not enough. We have to rise into what we call intelligence. And so that's why I don't really advocate financial literacy. I advocate financial intelligence, because we're not putting cash in the forefront. Financial literacy make money be the basis of you becoming literate. No, financial intelligence puts the basis of you having a knowledge of self to recognize a mathematical way of looking at things. That's all that is. It's a mathematical way of looking at things. And you can use any symbol to represent that. That's the jewel that I'm going to leave on you. You can use any symbol to represent your mathematical formula. And as soon as you figure that out and learn how to use that, that's when you'll take yourself off the clock. My way is the Wizetics way, and this is the way we keep ourselves off the clock to be able to move in pressure, because pressure is necessary for the diamond mine. That's another one. Peace. Wizetics.